Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty provocative text from the 18th century. It kicks off with a massive question. What if your senses, the very things you rely on to understand the world, are actually a veil hiding what's really real? The author Karl von Eckhartshausen wrote this during the so-called Age of Enlightenment, but right out of the gate, he flips that whole idea on its head. He's basically saying that what we call light, our reason, our science, our intellect, isn't the full sun. No, it's just twilight. We're living in a world of shadows, not absolute truth. So, just to give you some context, this idea comes from a German mystic named Karl von Eckhartshausen, and it actually took about 100 years for his work to be translated into English, which was done by Isabel de Steiger in 1895. But as you're about to see, the message itself feels like it could have been written yesterday. So why this twilight? Why does Eckhartshausen think we're all just stumbling around in the half-dark? Well, according to him, the problem isn't with reality itself. The problem is with us, with our perception. There's a cloud blocking our view. He says there's this huge conflict happening inside every single one of us. It's a battle between two different natures. On the one hand, you've got the sensuous man. That's kind of our default setting, right? We're ruled by our five senses, we see the world of appearances, what's right in front of us. But then there's this dormant potential, the spiritual man. This part of us isn't limited by our physical senses. It can actually perceive absolute truth directly, using a totally different faculty. And this brings us to a really crucial idea he calls the inner sensorium. I want you to think of it like a spiritual organ. Just like your eyes are built to see physical light, this inner sensorium is designed to perceive the spiritual world, to see reality without any filters. And get this, he wasn't just being poetic. Eckhartshausen believed this sensorium is a real thing, an actual part of our being. The problem is that for most of us, it's been veiled or shut down by what he calls the gross matter of our physical lives. In other words, our constant reliance on our five senses creates so much noise that we can't hear that quieter, deeper sense. Okay, so if the problem is a locked door, a closed-off spiritual sense, then the solution has to be finding a way to open it. So let's talk about the path he lays out for lifting that veil. He calls this process regeneration. And this is the core puzzle he tries to solve, right? If the only tools we have to see with are flawed, how in the world are we supposed to see clearly? It sounds like a total paradox, an impossible catch-22. His answer is this one big word, regeneration. And we have to be really clear here, he's not just talking about being a better person morally. He's describing a deep, transformative process. It's about letting the immortal spiritual part of you grow so big and strong that it actually takes over the mortal physical part. It's about reawakening that dormant spiritual organ. And Eckhartshausen actually gives us a kind of roadmap for this. He breaks it down into 3 stages. It all starts on the moral plane, where you just begin to get these little nudges, moments of inspiration. Then it moves to the intellectual plane. This is where that sensorium starts to crack open, leading to what he calls interior illumination, like a sudden flash of understanding. And the final step, the rarest one, is full vision, when the inner man completely wakes up and can see the spiritual world just as clearly as we see this one. Now, you might be thinking, okay, if this knowledge is so important, where has it been all this time? Well, according to Eckhartshausen, it hasn't been lost. It's been carefully protected by a hidden group he calls the Keepers of the Light. He calls them a society of the elect, and he believed this invisible community has been the guardian of this true inner science throughout all of human history. They're the ones who hold the keys. This really explains who they are. This isn't some secret club you can join with a special handshake. He says they've existed since the very beginning. They're scattered all across the world, but they are perfectly united in spirit. Think of it less as an organization and more as a school of prophets, taught directly by wisdom itself, with one job, to preserve the path back to the light. To make this even clearer, he draws this brilliant contrast between what he calls the exterior church, that's all the visible religions with their rituals and books and buildings, and the interior church. The exterior church has the symbol, the ceremony, but the interior church, this invisible community, they have the actual spirit, the truth, the meaning behind it all. One is the map, the other is the territory itself. So what does this all boil down to for us, for the individual? The ultimate message is that the most important work isn't out there somewhere. It's all about building the temple within. I just love this metaphor he uses. He says the real work is about tearing down the miserable Adamic hut. That's our limited, earthly, sense-based self, and in its place, building a divine temple. Building a new version of ourselves, capable of actually perceiving and housing the divine. And that's really the end game of his entire system. It's all about developing that organ to receive God by opening the inner sensorium. It's a fundamental power shift inside of us, letting our immortal, spiritual nature take its rightful place as the ruler of our entire being. And that leaves us with a pretty profound and, maybe a little unsettling question. Eckhartshausen's work forces us to wonder if our entire experience of reality is just a heavily edited version of the truth. If he's even a little bit right, what essential, beautiful, world-changing truths might be all around us, right now, completely unseen?